Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Football.
And welcome in to a Feedback Friday live episode here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. It's Mackie, it's Judd, our guy Dex taking a couple days off before Christmas Eve vent line, which we will hit you with after Vikings Lions on Sunday. And Judd, before we get started here and turn the show over to the audience with a boatload of feedback questions, some really good questions in here. Let's tell the audience as well. If you're going to be, I'm going to be road tripping around between Christmas and New Year's. I'm sure we'll stop by some Quick Trips in the upper Midwest. Looking forward to that. Quick Trip is the official presenting sponsor here of Purple Daily this season.
And the great thing about when you stop at a Quick Trip, Phil, is you have your choices. Like you could get the quality gas guarantee there, the Karuba coffee there, a snack, perhaps breakfast, lunch, or dinner as well. Quick Trip is your one-stop shopping, which makes them the perfect road trip place since you don't want to make a ton of stops. That includes, but by the way, milk. That's right. Nature's Touch milk is $2.99 per gallon. Skim 1% and 2%. Made right in La Crosse. Quick Trip has their own dairy facility. Cow to store, they say in 24. Cow to store in 24. That quick. That's exactly right. Perfect for large gatherings for, of course, the holiday season, or whip up a adult beverage like a lot of us like to do. So Quick Trip is the place to stop for everything, including the milk. And you know what? When you're there, you're going to probably find a bunch of things that you want because Quick Trip has the answers.
Yes. We've been known, my wife and I, to just get our groceries at Quick Trip from time to time.
I know you do, yeah.
Yep. So we got Vikings Lions. So yeah, just a programming note. We're going to be live on Christmas Eve for Vikings Vent Line. We will also be live on New Year's Eve next weekend for Vent Line. That's a night game against the Packers. So we might be like ringing in the new year still.
We're going to come close.
While live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel.
Yep.
So, and then we'll also hit you guys with a Christmas episode of Hottest Vikings Take. So 365 days a year here, no days off on Purple Daily. Let's start with, and the best way to hit us up during the week, you can always email us through the Score North app. There's a feedback tab, and you can either send your Write That Down request to get on that on Wednesdays, or you can just send us takes or questions, whatever you want. That's the best way. We'll start with David Bruss here, who says, do you believe Jaren Hall is being wasted? We are using career backup quarterbacks while Jaren Hall, who was drafted, sits on the bench. This team will not make it to the Super Bowl, so why not start Jaren Hall for the remaining 3 games and maybe playoffs and see what he can do?
I don't know he's being wasted because if there's a true fear that they're going to stunt his development by playing him, which might be the case, I don't know. They definitely don't want to rush him and see him as a project. Wasted might be too strong, but I said this after seeing Mullins sabotage the game, and I don't care what his stats were, okay? Like for years, it'd be completely hypocritical for us to come on here and say, well, but I mean, look at Mullins' box score, because we said the same thing about Kirk when Kirk was playing far superior to how Nick played on Sunday, but we've always said we don't care about the box score. It's what do you do that's right? What do you do in clutch times? And Nick Mullins made 2 plays that sabotaged that game. And so would I play Hall? Yeah. I probably would. At this point in time, I probably would. But I think wasted might be strong because that's implying that he is definitely 1,000% set to play. And I don't know that. We just have not seen enough. But I understand the question. And if I disagreed with it last week, I think I've done a pretty big 180 on that one by now.
Yeah, I think where I'm at here is I don't know that you can say definitively that Nick Mullins, by a clear margin, helps you win games more than Jaren Hall does. And that's obviously what Kevin O'Connell and the coaching staff think. And they see way more than we do behind the scenes. So I'm not going to pretend to be sitting there in the quarterback rooms. And maybe Jaren Hall is still in way over his head. We don't know. So until he gets out there and plays and proves it one way or the other. But to me, it's just more tantalizing to open the door that you've never opened before outside of like 2 drives in Atlanta. We kind of know what Nick Mullins is by now. You know, he started 18 games in his NFL career. His teams are like, what are they, like 10 games under 500 or something? I think they've maybe won 6 or 7 games. So it's not My math might be faulty on that, but they're way under 500 when Nick Mullins starts either in San Francisco, Cleveland, or Minnesota.
Correct.
So it's just we like to unwrap the gift that we don't know what's inside the box yet. We know that there's probably not a great chance that he turns into Brock Purdy or Tom Brady, one of these other 6th or 7th round picks, but it's not like Nick Mullins tried to sabotage that game, and he did so very successfully. If they just kick field goals on those 2 dumb interceptions, they probably win that game without going to overtime. So I don't know. I'd love to see Jaren Hall starting this weekend. The only way he gets in on Sunday, though, is if Nick Mullins gets hurt or train wrecks in the first half, and now you're probably down by 2 touchdowns or something. So, but is he being wasted? I mean, he's under contract for 3 more years.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
Yep. Corey Larson says, I can't stop thinking about that touchdown pass Jaren Hall missed to TJ Hawkinson against Atlanta. How much different would the Vikings season be if Jaren hits Hawkinson for the touchdown and then doesn't get hurt on the very next play? A football butterfly effect question.
That's a great question of like what could have been. I have no clue, but there is a case to be made that if he hits him on that and he plays well, he's still playing right now. Who knows? Like Josh Dobbs definitely. If Jaren Hall does not get hurt against the Falcons, Josh Dobbs does not sniff the field that day for sure. They had no intention of trying to play a guy they had just acquired, right? So yeah, that's a fun question. That is that I guess that would have given a lot of people what they wanted, which is give Jaren Hall an extended chance, and either he thrives or he fails and he gets replaced by Dobbs at that point, or eventually Mullins. But it would have been interesting. I think we saw 14 plays, okay? And like we saw some good plays. We saw some the thing I liked about him is he didn't look like flustered. He didn't look like he was in over his head and was soiling himself. I did like that. Would he have been great? I have no clue. But it is to your point, it's a butterfly effect question that's pretty compelling, pretty interesting.
I feel like there's a great off-season series. We love, in like June and July, we love to sort of map out because there's nothing happening in the news. So we love to map out theme weeks. We did the top 25 Vikings of all time last week. We should do like a theme episode or a theme week of just Vikings or football butterfly effect possibilities. What if Teddy Bridgewater, we did that one time. What if Teddy Bridgewater didn't get hurt? What if the Vikings decided to bring back Case Keenum on a 2-year cheap contract, relatively cheap compared to the Cousins contract? Where would their quarterback carousel have taken them? There's probably 100 of these you could choose going back, 60 years in Vikings football. If they win a Super Bowl in the 70s, what is the town like? What are the demeanors of fans like?
Like I've said, my biggest one, I think arguably the biggest one in my time following the Vikings is the was it 2012 or 11 debacle when they won 3 games.
11. Andrew Luck was the number 1 pick.
Andrew Luck, and all you had to do was not beat Carolina and Washington, and you win 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, I believe the Washington game you won because Ponder got hurt and Joe Webb came in and did just enough to throw Washington off.
That's right.
But
wasn't that the game that Peterson tear his ACL in that game?
And poor Leslie Frazier post game. This is going to be a Merry Christmas. We won this game. It's like, Les, no. And the thing about Luck is what happens if Luck comes here and you give him a competent offensive line? Because I think he might still be playing.
There's a whole like Andrew Luck
that's a huge
butterfly
one.
effect. If Andrew Luck is with the Vikings or an organization that just
takes care of him.
Yeah, had better infrastructure and weapons, and I don't know, man, because he lost his joy, right? I still say, man, he's not that old. What is he, 34? I'd be calling that dude.
But
you want to put 20 pounds back on?
He weighs like 140 now. The last time I saw him, he's so small. He's so thin.
Andrew, come on, man. Like, if you're the Niners and Brock Purdy gets hurt or something again, that elbow gives out again. Andrew, just put on 20 pounds. You can just sit back here behind Trent Williams. You got weapons all over the place.
Yeah.
George chimes in, says, "Dear Phil, my dearest Phil."
Oh boy.
Captain Andrew Luck. He says, "Dear Phil, I love your shows. Last year I wrote to you as Angry George. You read my letter on air, and I guess it was a big hit. I do remember. Angry George was beware the Ides of KOC. Angry George. It was earlier in the season, and I was talking about how hiring KOC was a huge mistake compared to having Jim Harbaugh as head coach. I think you and the crew are making a huge mistake now when you talk about firing KOC. You are defending him and his record, saying it's ludicrous for discussions regarding him being fired. But what you are missing is the incredible opportunity cost that this team is now realizing. We're stuck with KOC now. It's true he does not deserve to be fired, but we are paying the price for him learning on the job. And he goes on to say, this is actually a really well thought out long letter here, or email, but he essentially says, like I said in my letter last year, the biggest mistake in the history of the Minnesota Vikings was having Jim Harbaugh in the executive offices and not handing him a contract. I also said last year that Harbaugh would put this team on a 3-year plan, and as such, next year this team would have competed for a Super Bowl. This team now could not be further from a Super Bowl. KOC is not a Super Bowl coach. Just to keep this short, I will say that the mistake that was made last year will never be recovered from. With this coach, the Vikings will never compete for a Super Bowl, and I can't tell you how much it saddens me that Jim Harbaugh is not the Vikings coach.
Interesting. So I do believe that Harbaugh has the potential to have a very short, and to be clear, I'm talking about Jim Harbaugh, the National Football League coach, okay? Not to be confused with the college guy who basically controls the entire program. So there's a difference there because, yes, in college you have to work with an AD, but in the pros you have to work with a GM, ownership. There's a lot more layers to go through. Do I think Jim Harbaugh could have given this team the boost he's talking about? Yeah, I think he could have. Do I think that he was going to be the long-term solution? No, because I think what happened with San Francisco is very indicative of who Jim is. But, it's an interesting, to what you said, Phil, it's an interesting point, and it's well thought out, because if the goal is a Super Bowl, Jim Harbaugh might have gotten you there. He might have gotten you there. I think what happened in San Francisco, if and when Jim Harbaugh gets back to the pros, will repeat itself, because I think the act wears thin with everybody pretty quickly, but he's damn good.
That's where I would even, like, when you say the act will repeat itself, I would say that's great. So he came into San Francisco and overnight made that team hyper competitive. I mean, Alex Boone was a key member of that team, and he's told us, I mean, we had that. In fact, one of the biggest episodes in Purple Daily history was when Jim Harbaugh was maybe going to become Vikings head coach, and Boone came on for an hour and just told us all about him and got a lot of fans excited about Jim Harbaugh being the Vikings coach, and then they chose Kevin O'Connell. But, he went into San Francisco. It was like 4 years, a flash of lightning, and then they went to a Super Bowl. They almost won a Super Bowl. They were one of the best teams in the NFL with Alex Smith and then second-round Colin Kaepernick. And it was an us against everybody mentality. And after 4 years, he burned bridges with the front office and the ownership group, and even some of the players were kind of sick of him. But if I could, and again, I don't think Kevin O'Connell deserves to be fired. I think we've seen a lot of great signs from Kevin O'Connell. I think Kevin O'Connell is a really good NFL head coach that's getting better. He's learning. He's young. He's not even 40 years old, right? He's a young guy. Mm-hmm. But if I asked you right now today, the latest reports are Jim Harbaugh is going to get another slap on the back of the wrist by the NCAA for some violations from 3 years ago, and this Bobo that was on the sidelines and whatever. Like, they're trying to hit him with some more penalties in college. The Chargers are apparently all in trying to get Harbaugh to be their head coach. If I said to you right now, for the next 3 years, you can have Kevin O'Connell or Jim Harbaugh as the Vikings head coach, I would choose Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very good case to be made that in a short period of time, yes, he could achieve what you want. So I don't disagree. And just to be clear, the cheating stuff in college, I don't care about. I'm not sure about you. I don't care about it. College football is a cesspool. It's a joke.
It's a wild, wild west.
Yeah, I mean, and he's trying to steal signs. Good. You should try to steal signs. And if he was involved, I also don't care. But yeah, that's my point. Is it's like I think the Vikings were very hesitant because of his past to hire him. But do I think that he would have provided a burst that could have resulted, could being the key word, in a championship? Mm-hmm. Yes. So I don't disagree with you.
And the thing is, it's hard because KOC is now, he's on backup quarterbacks, and last year they they clearly hired the wrong defensive coordinator. So, we're 2 years into this thing. They've won 20 of their 31 games under Kevin O'Connell. So they've been winning games, but it's been almost 2 years. And if I were to say, hey, what is your elevator pitch 10-second definition for a Kevin O'Connell team? How would you describe a Kevin O'Connell team? I don't know that there is I don't know that he has an identity or that his team has an identity other than, they've won more games than they've lost. But if I said, what is a Jim Harbaugh team in the NFL or in college, you'd say all in, playing for each other, hard-nosed, winning in the trenches, run the ball down your throat with a creative passing attack.
Yep.
Right?
With an air of discomfort, probably because of how he is. The O'Connell team, I think it'd be fair to say he has. I think as far as the team goes, he has a very good culture structure, but I think as far as the on the field description, that's tougher. And here's where I'm really torn. If we could blame the Vikings season on injuries completely, I think it'd be easier to be like, okay, let's say Kirk got hurt in week 3 or something, right? Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about this morning. What bothers me about this is a lot of their blown opportunities came with key players healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Kirk got hurt and they fell apart. They actually went on a win streak. But, like when you look at Justin Jefferson playing, when you look at Kirk Cousins playing, and I'm not necessarily blaming them. I'm just saying that you could be on your way to a division title with a backup QB right now if your starters who are now hurt had set you up better.
Mm-hmm. No, it's interesting. Did you, by the way, just to get you on the record here, I went on the record. Did you answer? I can't remember if you did. Next 3 years, KOC or Harbaugh?
Yeah, Harbaugh.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, man. No, because it's the short-term burst. But here's the thing is, if you're telling me, like, okay, here's a path to a potential championship for the Minnesota bleeping Vikings, how do you turn that down?
Yeah. Do you think he would, if they made that move, which, again, like, they're not going to, but, and they had a chance to 2 years ago.
Yeah, they were afraid of it.
Would he look to bring Kirk back as a bridge recovering quarterback, or would he?
I don't know.
Or
would Kirk want to play for Jim Harbaugh?
Or would they? You know what he would do? He'd probably draft JJ. He'd look to draft JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, the one thing I will say is I do believe that if one of the main desired results for O'Connell was to find someone who worked well with Kirk, I think they did a good job there. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that I don't think there's a lot of evidence that says that relationship has not worked. Do you?
No, it has worked from a wins and losses perspective, and from Kirk's personal numbers and growth.
What he's doing,
it's been great. It's the best we've seen. Sharif Stafford says, guys, thank you for calming down fans on the firing of KOC topic. Flores replacing KOC is not a good move in today's NFL. If you have a choice between an offensive head coach and a defensive head coach, I feel like you'd have to pick offense 9 out of 10 times. Scoring consistently is more important to win in today's game, in my opinion. What direction would you guys lean, take Harbaugh off the board, if you were looking for a new coach? Or I guess just in general, like, how do you feel about offensive versus defensive coaches?
In this era of football, I'm going offense, and I'm going with a guy that can work with my QB. If it's Kirk, that's fine. But if it's a draft pick, I'm going to have the leader of my program, if you will, to go football program. I like to say
program. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm having the leader of my program be an offensive guy now, which is why I'm not going to blow out O'Connell it's the first reason why I'm not blowing out O'Connell for Flores. There's also questions I think about Brian as a head coach that are quite different than, there's a lot of guys who were born to be coordinators. Not everybody was born to be a head coach. And I think teams get confused by that sometimes. But yeah, I don't see any way that I would ever go back to having a defensive first guy when the quarterback position is just so instrumental. And I want a person that understands that.
Yep. I agree with 9 times out of 10. I'm leaning offense. But if there's a great leader out there, I mean, Mike Tomlin might be at the end of his road with Pittsburgh. And if he was available, it wouldn't matter to me that he's a defensive guy. I know that dude oversees winning football teams. That dude's been a Super Bowl coach. So there are examples. And maybe Brian Flores becomes that at some point too. Tom Schrankler says, can you guys draw some comparisons and differences between KOC and Brandon Staley? It seems at times both the Chargers and the Vikings lack attention to detail, fumbles, dropped passes, etc. Considering they coached together under Sean McVay, they must have similar styles. They're really good friends. What would the 2024 Vikings look like if KOC hires Brandon Staley as the defensive coordinator if Flores gets a head coaching job? I will say this. To me, the biggest difference between Brandon Staley as a head coach with the Chargers and KOC's first 2 years, the Chargers, we'll go back to identity for a second. The Chargers' identity seems to be finding any way to lose a close game. Just doing something dumb, being reckless on fourth down when you don't need to.
The Jacksonville game, the playoff game.
Oh,
I mean, that's a brutal
up 27 rip. Yep. Now, of course, the Chargers found a way to win a close game against the Vikings this year. So, but the Vikings mostly in 2 years have been really good in one-score games. They're like 500 in one-score games this year. They were 11-0 in one-score games last year. By and large, KOC teams have found a way more often than not to pull it off in a situation. And the Chargers, it feels like, have found ways to fumble it away or do something dumb.
First of all, I think Staley's going to get a job as a DC. And I know at the end of the day, he was calling plays defensively for the Chargers, but I think that was more of a that was more of an indictment of him as a head coach probably than a defensive mind. So I do think he's going to work, and I won't guarantee it won't be here. If Flores leaves, I am sure Staley's going to be on a list. But I'm Joe Barry in Green Bay almost certainly going to be blown out, right? So he might be a candidate for Matt LaFleur there. But I think the main difference that I see from a head coaching standpoint between the two is this. Brandon Staley, when you blow the leads or the tight games that his team did, that means you're uptight. That means you are tensing up at a moment when your team needs you to basically assure them it's going to be okay. And for that, and also, I'm hard pressed, no matter how bad things get here or at some point might get with KOC, I'm hard pressed to think KOC is ever going to get up at a podium and snap. He's very measured. Brandon Staley got pissy.
He's a little wound tight.
Yeah, I don't see Kevin getting
to
pissy.
Calm down.
I think Kevin's upset. I know he's upset at times, and I know behind the scenes he is wound. So it's not like he's not wound tight, but I think he's very good at knowing, situationally, okay, this is not a time for me to vent. So I think Kevin is far more, and this gets into the coordinator head coach discussion, right? I don't want a head coach who is just so in his own head that he's not thinking things through clearly. The head coach is a CEO. A CEO can't be the person who manages the store. That person can get wound. It's going to work out fine, right? But if I'm in charge of the company, I better be cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
Staley to me didn't seem like that. Kevin so far, even when he screws up, he explains it and he is able to do it in a way where where I say to myself, that's a pretty impressive way to respond to something.
Yeah, and I'm not going to. We've talked to KOC enough, just either on the show or just practices, press conferences, or whatever. You have a pretty good feel for his personality, how he deals with people, and whatever. I won't pretend to have that same knowledge of Staley, other than what we see on TV and press conferences. But it does feel like Kevin O'Connell has a great way of, even in moments where he's being questioned or things aren't going right, to kind of put some space between it and be pretty chill about it still and hold the room. And Staley kind of feels like an introverted mad scientist who's lashing out or something. I don't know. Maybe if he becomes the defensive coordinator, maybe we find out he's got a whole different side to his personality. But he feels like a teeth clencher as a head coach. Well,
and if he's coordinating your defense, the pressure is still there, but it's not nearly what it is trying to coach a team.
Kevin Albers chimes in and says, hey, Kenny Albert's going to be on the call for Vikings and Lions as we get That's Kenny Albert.
Yeah, Kenny Albert.
And Jonathan Vilma.
Yeah.
It's the Vikings and the Lions with the division on the line. Jonathan Vilma, who did zero prep for this game, coming up next on Fox.
I like Kenny, but Vilma, my God, the game I watched with him it was hard to watch it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for Vikings fans, like Joe Buck for a long time was like enemy number one for broadcasters. And then he came on Purple Daily a few weeks ago and he endeared himself to Vikings fans.
Oh, he's loved.
Jonathan Vilma still being at the heart of that Bounty Gate defense in 2009.
Yeah, good point.
I think fans, rightfully so, remember that. It's hard to watch him call a Vikings game.
I just didn't think he prepped at all. I don't care if you're I don't care what you did, dude. Just know the teams.
Yeah.
Bring something to the game.
You know who I'm kind of coming around on, and he kind of drove me nuts at first a couple years ago, but Mark Sanchez has gotten a lot better as a color commentator.
Because you like the hair. It's because you like the hair last
It's
game.
not. No, he's got the
Great
flow.
hair.
I'm jealous.
Great hair.
But
hair.
he's funny. He preps. He gets excited. He clearly enjoys doing it. It's broadcasting has probably always been more of a calling for him than clearly like being a franchise quarterback in the NFL, and he seems to kind of know that. There's so many more great questions here. Before we get to some more of these, let's shout out a couple friends here helping us power these episodes of Purple Daily, starting with the hat that you're wearing there, Judd. Park Tavern, the official sports bar of the Sports Dad, Judd Zolgad.
And there's something for everyone at Park Tavern. There's bowling. There's 2 bars. It's a huge place. Great beers on tap. Great food. All the games. And also, how about this, Phil Mackey? How about the Park Tavern 21 plus New Year's Eve bash? That's right, New Year's Eve bash. If you're looking for plans, $25 per person. And there are the bowling lanes right there. Cosmic Bowling, 9:30 until close. A $100 prize for the first strike of 2024. Park Tavern, a great place to party, a great place to have an event, and a great place to spend your New Year's Eve watching probably some Packers, Vikings, also some bowling. Call for reservations, 952-929-6810. 952-929-6810. Park Tavern, located Louisiana Avenue South, St. Louis Park, parktavern.net. And yes, I did have to blow up the number because I was like, I can't read the 6810 part. That's a me problem, Phil.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just looking over my shoulder here where Maya the Monster, Maya Mackey, is enjoying her mid-morning nap here before she gets a little helping of Nutrisource chicken and rice. Nutrisource is the official dog and pet food of Purple Daily and Score North, Judd.
I'm getting the old, I'm back to the 6:45 wake-up call. I don't know. Stella, for a while, said, you know what, Pop, you can sleep in. But lately, I get that look, and I get a little bark at about 6:45 because she says it's Nutrisource time. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's very hard to stay in bed and ignore a dog who's got good taste. And when it comes to Nutrisource pet foods, that's good taste, and Stella loves her breakfast.
Yeah, you can find, so Chuck and Don's is a great spot, but you can find Nutrisource retailers near you at NutrisourcePetFoods.com. And a shout out to our friends, too, over at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. So Federated, they've been around like a great offensive line protecting you as a quarterback / business owner. They've been around since 1904, providing frontline protection, elevating businesses. If you go to federatedinsurance.com, you can find a full list of industries that Federated specializes in working with, and you can see the benefits that your business can gain by working with Federated, who was also named, by the way, a top 10 employer in the state of Minnesota recently by Forbes. It's a great place to work as well. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Thank you guys for supporting our partners here. It keeps us 365 days a year talking Vikings and building this awesome community here. So let's go to Lauren Pagulis, who chimes in and says, guys, love the show. Thank you for the great content. Thank you, Lauren. I, too, have been incredibly underwhelmed by the defense's end-of-game performances in recent weeks. One thing I wanted to point out, though, I think we're all underestimating just how important Jordan Hicks is to this defense. Yes, Ivan Pace Jr. has excelled, but he's still a rookie. Jordan Hicks is out there making checks after the offense, and he's a savvy, smart veteran. These issues in the second half and fourth quarter really started during the New Orleans game, which is when Jordan Hicks got hurt. It's been an issue the entire time he's been on the injured list.
I love this point. It's a great point. And I was actually thinking about this a couple of days ago. And I think at some point in time, perhaps after the season's done, we should do like each do like a top 3 list of things that we were the most incorrect on, like perceptions and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my top one is Jordan Hicks. They cut his salary, and I quite frankly said, I'm surprised they didn't cut him. To me, in his first year with the Vikings in 2022, he looked sort of old. I mean, he did some things fine, but I considered him to be a guy, right? And I think that what you just read is spot on. I think Jordan Hicks, and this is nothing against Pace. Pace has been a great find, phenomenal. He's got a bright future, and shame on the rest of the league, including the Vikings, I guess, for not drafting him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that nailed it. I think that there are certain things when you look at the guys on this defense who are allowed to call checks. I think it's a very different thing for the green dot guy who's getting information from Flores to be a rookie or a veteran. So I think that nailed it. I think the loss of Jordan Hicks might not have saved 21 points from being scored against the Bengals in the fourth quarter, but I think his return is going to be huge. And my only question is, coming off what sounds like a very significant leg injury, how much does he potentially play on Sunday if he plays?
Yep. And then the other thing too is like Brian Asamoah has just been a total non-factor on the defense when everyone kind of thought, well, almost everyone except for this guy right here thought that he was going to come in and 150 tackles, whatever. Like Ivan Pace has been what we thought Brian Asamoah was going to be. For this team. The top of that draft, dude, is still. I mean, Scene can't get on the field. I think he might be gone before training camp. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they try and spin him off for like a 6th round pick or something, just a late round pick if they can get that, which I'm not sure that they can.
Ingram's been better. Been better,
but Booth has gone back to not playing now. Booth was playing for a while and now he's not again. And then to your point, Awesome was a complete non-factor other than special teams.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy Gordon says, Jimmy Gordon sounds like a
Jimmy
NASCAR
Gordon
driver.
the paper boy in Superman?
Jimmy Gordon. Let me Google.
It was Jimmy something.
The Christopher Reeve.
No, that's Clark Kent. No, there was like a paper boy, a copy boy.
He is a DC cop. James Worthington. Jim Gordon is a fictional character. Batman. Apparently, he was
Jimmy Olsen. Thank you, Jeff. That's Superman.
Okay,
I got it confused with Batman. That's what it was.
Okay, just glad we could
Look
clarify
at that. My knowledge of like the comics is very underrated.
It is underrated. Some of your discussions the last few days have got me taking a step back and thinking about long-term solutions for us. You guys talked about it on the Monday after Mackey's hot take and asking yourselves if you'd rather see us win out or lose out in these last 3 games. I'm definitely on Team Mackey in losing out as it's so frustrating being stuck in mediocrity limbo. I feel like this year was the perfect season to embrace the rebuild side of things. I'd love for you guys to talk through the long-term effects of potential outcomes due to once again finishing near 500 and picking in the usual 16th to 21st range. So there's still a really wide range of possibilities here, and that if they do lose out, and it all depends on how some of these, there's like 13 teams clustered in within a game and a half.
And the Rams jumped them last night, so the Vikings are now in the 7th and final playoff spot.
Yep. Now, if the Vikings win, then they would, I think, re-jump the Rams and get back to 6th, but if the Vikings win out, they could win the division if Detroit loses to Dallas. And now you're hosting a playoff game. Now you're drafting in the 20s, right? Yeah. If you lose out, there's still a chance, I think mathematically, that you can get the 10th overall pick. So, or like 10th or 11th. So there's literally like these next 3 weeks, 11 or 12 slots in the draft order sort of up for grabs depending on what happens. And all I said last week was, would it be the worst thing in the world? And I don't want the team to be quitting on the coach because that opens up a whole new Pandora's box of problems. Right. Of do they have a culture that's sustainable? Right. But if they can keep fighting and scrapping, and they got a backup quarterback, and they're grinding, but they're just losing to a better Lions team a couple times, and they wind up, and then maybe they lose to the Packers in whatever fashion. Like, would it be the worst thing if these losses led them to the 11th pick instead of the 22nd pick? It wouldn't be a terrible thing. Because if they win the division, are they really making a run? Or would, as I've seen a couple other people point out in the emails, what if they win the division? In fact, where is this? I gotta get to this one. Somebody sent us a note laying out. Here it is. Chris Gotti. As a Vikings fan for 30 years, it's painfully obvious how the rest of this season will unfold. Write this down. The season will end in one of two scenarios. Either the Vikings will lose to the Lions, beat the Packers, and then lose a heartbreaker to Detroit's backups in a win and in scenario and be out, but have 8 wins and be drafting like 17th or something. Or the Vikings win out, sweep the Lions, steal the division, only to get run over by the same Lions wild card weekend. We've all seen this script before, so sit back, crack open a Surly, and enjoy the most painful way to blow the season because it's coming.
Okay, I get that completely, and that's a great note. But one of the things that intrigues me, and I guess I don't want them to lose out now, just because from a selfish personal standpoint, the intrigue of this whole thing, because yeah, you're right. If they do and they get a top, 10 or 11 pick, that's actually fantastic. But let me paint you a picture real quick here, okay? So let's say they win on Sunday, they beat the Packers, and let's say seeding is still important, so they lose at Detroit. You'd probably play Detroit again, right?
Yes.
In Detroit? Okay. Now, I know the Vikings can be a calamity at times, but if you get a division-winning Detroit team suddenly with pressure on it at home, so like there's no pressure on you at that point. If you're the Vikings, it's right.
We saw it happen 20 years ago.
I'm just right.
They went to Lambeau, the Packers. They're trying to get back to that Super Bowl level a few years later. Vikings are like, we already lost this team a couple times. Who gives a rip? Yep.
And let's just say I was doing some research this morning. Brian Flores' defense against Jared Goff have had some success. Mm-hmm. So I'm just throwing it out there, like, because if you were going to play the second seed, which is the first seed, because the first seed gets a bye, that's probably going to be difficult. But if you can give me the Lions in the first round of the playoffs, I think it could be great fun.
So they would be right now. Let me check this out here. I think, well, today, I guess, because the Rams played last night, the Vikings are the 7 seed. So as of the recording of this episode, they would go to Dallas, right? Because Dallas right now is the 2 seed. And the Rams would go, that would be interesting, right? A Sean McVay, red hot Rams team with Matthew Stafford,
that would be a great
no pressure, going in, and
Stafford in Detroit. Can you imagine that? That would be a great storyline.
Anna Reed says, my son is a huge Purple Daily and Vikings fan. We live in Florida, and he really wanted some Before I Die lager. So my friend and I took a road trip to St. Louis just to buy him some Before I Die. Total mileage, 1,700 miles. He absolutely loved his surprise gift. Wow.
What a mom. What a mom. And I hope you bought like, because I think it's sold at the most in 6 packs. I hope you bought the store out, because that's a long way to drive for like 6 beers. But what a mom.
That's amazing. Anna, wow. So a 1,700 mile trip. Loyalty to the Vikings, loyalty to
Mother
Purple Daily.
That's Mother of the Year.
You guys. Jay Runquist says, okay, here's a scenario. You re-sign Kirk to a 2-year contract. You sign JJ to an extension, and you bring Danielle Hunter back on a new contract. So those three things are done before the draft. All right. And you make it work financially.
Okay.
And then he says, you've now traded up to the 3rd pick in the draft. Who or what position are you taking? Or what if I reframe this? Because I don't know that you would do all those things.
I'm having a really good free agency / off season here.
What if I just left the question at, you bring Kirk back for 2 years, you've JJ extended, Hunter brought back.
Yeah.
You're picking 20th. That's where your slot is, let's say.
Yeah.
What are you looking to do strategically?
Well, personally, if it depends on how the quarterback class falls, because I still want one if I can get one personally. If you re-sign, that's my personal opinion. But from a Vikings side, if you re-sign Kirk to a 2-year contract, you think you're still drafting one? Like let's say it's ironclad, no out in the second year, so he's back.
Oh, if it's fully 2 years, then you're not. I don't think you're drafting a quarterback in the first round.
Yep.
If there's like a no trade clause and all that BS, if he controls all of that, and he has quite a bit of leverage. We don't have to get into the weeds here, but there's a deadline, like when the league year hits, like the second week in March. The Vikings are on the hook accounting wise for a $28 million cap hit without Kirk even being on the team. If he doesn't agree to a new contract, the Vikings have to pay $28 million in Kirk accounting without Kirk being here. But if they agree to a new deal, that money gets absorbed into it, right? That money goes away basically.
It goes away for now. I think it might come back to bite you in the ass.
Well, you can spread it over the void years.
Yep. It's the can being kicked down the proverbial NFL road.
Yep. It can be spread and prorated over multiple void years.
Continue to smooth it.
But there's an inherent, if the Vikings want Kirk back, like they're going to have to do it by a certain date. But Kirk can kind of hold that date over their heads and be like, oh, I'll agree before this date if you give me what I want. Which is full no trade and all this stuff.
No trade. Exactly right. If it's not a quarterback, I am targeting defensive end.
Give me a second edge. Yeah, give me an edge.
I am targeting, just as far as positionally, I'm targeting defensive end. If there's a really good defensive tackle, I would look at that. I'm not looking at linebackers. Cornerbacks, we could discuss. We could discuss that one. But offensive line wise, so just to be clear, offensive line wise, I am not considering a first round pick, and here's why. You've got your tackles, and I'm not taking a guard in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I upgrade my guards? Absolutely. Do I want to? Absolutely. I ain't taking a guard or center in the first round.
Yep. I would love, if it's not quarterback, give me a stud defensive lineman. Either give me a defensive tackle or give me another edge rusher, someone that can make something happen. Andres Barola says, stop the BS.
Stop it.
Kirk Cousins had 6 seasons and did nothing but win 1 playoff game in that time. What more do you need to see? He will never win us a Super Bowl. Isn't that totally obvious by now? He has no pocket awareness. Let's face it, Kirk throws a beautiful ball, but it's hard to do it if he's on his back. Skol. Time to move on from Kirk. Let's draft our future quarterback and get a less expensive interim bridge guy that can help us develop the rookie. Kirk's time has come and gone. I think what I would say back to this is the Vikings do likely need a bridge quarterback. It would be tough to just go in with, we're going to draft a guy in the first round and throw him into the fire. Like it'd be nice to have a bridge option for either half the year or a full year. And here's the biggest key, all right? And this is where I have changed my thought on bringing Kirk back, because after the torn Achilles, it is likely, in theory, that he comes at a discount compared to if he were to have played this whole season out, 4,500 yards, MVP votes, or whatever he was on track for, right? So if I'm getting Kirk on my terms as a front office on the 15th highest paid or 17th highest paid contract, as opposed to him being once again one of the 5 highest paid quarterbacks, like that is doable. And if I can get out after the first year, so Kirk as a bridge guy on a discount is what we're talking about, a bridge to the next guy. It's not Kirk as the guy to win a Super Bowl for the Vikings. Let's go all in again here, ironclad 2 or 3 year deal. It's got to be on your terms as the Vikings front office.
Which is sort of the scary thing, because we don't know that that's going to be the case, and they might actually do it on Kirk's terms. And to your point, Kirk has a hammer, and when he's got a hammer, he's dangerous.
Yep.
So that's the thing. Yeah, this show is difficult at times because what we want and what we think are going to happen are 2 different things, and I think it's our responsibility is too strong. I think we owe it to the audience to talk about what we think the team will do as well. And so, do I buy the fact that O'Connell is being sincere when he says he wants Kirk back? Yes, I think he's being sincere. I think he really does. I think he likes how they work together. I think he's done a good job. But when somebody says, you know what, Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, is never going to win a Super Bowl, I've said the same thing, and I agree completely. Like, so ideal world, you you draft a first rounder, you can start him as quickly as possible, I guess.
Yeah.
Or to your point, you bridge it and wait a year. That's the ideal world, in my opinion. I don't think what my opinion is shared by the people in Egan.
Yeah, I have a really hard time to envisioning Kirk as the leader of a Super Bowl team, but the game changes a little bit if he's no longer like the leader in terms of taking up 20% of your cap. If all of a sudden now I'm still looking for my quarterback of the future, but I am much less out on Kirk if his contract is right. I need value somewhere. Like that's the thing. This is a salary cap league. You're paying top dollar for a wide receiver coming up, top dollar for a left tackle coming up, top dollar for a tight end, a right tackle, top dollar for an edge rusher, right? Like you can't pay top dollar for all your positions. You're going to run out of money to build a roster. So that's where you need value. You know, the 49ers are paying $850,000 for Brock Purdy. Value. He's worth probably $40 or $50 million on an open market right now.
Which is why the Jaren Hall discussion's intriguing, because if you think there's any chance that he can play, these are the things that organizations with big cojones decide, but it is dangerous. I mean, Brock Purdy could have been a complete bust. Now, in San Francisco's case, they would have just thrown him in the trash and said, "Okay, didn't work out."
Yeah.
But you make. I mean, the pick that the 49ers made of Trey Lance and what they did to get him should be a catastrophic mistake, but it's not.
Because they're a great organization, and they, you know, it was a mistake, but it didn't shipwreck them because they've got such a great house. It's like one of the rooms burned down, but the house stayed intact.
And then you got Brock Purdy. But I mean, what if there were? Let's just say that 25 of the 32 teams or more make that pick. It's a catastrophic mistake. It submarines them.
Yep. Let's see here. Oh, Matt Hansen. I love this. This is a great one. Heard this take on one of my fantasy football podcasts I listened to. Was curious if you guys agree. Tommy DeVito is more popular than Mike Trout. The fact that we have to think about that for 5 seconds says something about baseball, right?
I think he's more of a household name, probably.
I think he is too. Baseball, right? Dude.
But I mean, baseball, West Coast. If Mike Trout was the center fielder for the Yankees, then no. Then he is the household name. Like, do I think Aaron Judge is more of a household name than Tommy DeVito? Yes, I absolutely do. But when we're talking about a guy who's pretty low profile and plays for the Angels, I mean, well, here's the real question. How many quarterbacks could you just run through? And the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, it's a lot because of fantasy football and all the other things. Yep. Speaking of fantasy here, I'm on Prize Picks right now. I'm just on the Prize Picks app. Look at all those Nick Mullins. There's a bunch of Nick Mullins options here.
Oh, good. I'm taking the under on all of them.
262.5. You're going lower.
I shouldn't have said. You know what?
You're going less.
I shouldn't have said that. It's Christmas time. What a jerk I was.
Well, and it is Christmas time on Prize Picks. The 12 days of Picksmas this December.
Oh, I like it.
So there's a new promotion every single day for new and existing prize pickers. And the daily promotions will range from payout boosts to discounted projections. So check it out right now. There's a bunch of Nick Mullins options. You can get into a 262.5. They'll even give you a 224.5. Pick more or less. So with Prize Picks, you can win up to 25 times your money this football season by selecting 2 or more players, picking more or less on their projected stats, and placing your entry. Prize Picks also offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. PrizePicks.com/Purple Daily and use the code Purple Daily for a first deposit match up to $100. That's PrizePicks.com/Purple Daily with the code Purple Daily for a first deposit match up to $100. Also, hello to our friends at Zero Res here. So think about how refreshing it would be come January to schedule a deep cleaning of your house after the holidays, everything hit the new year, refreshed, breathe in the non-dusty air in your home. Zero Res is offering the Score North Special, which is 3 rooms, 0 resified, starting at just $129. That's 3 rooms, 0 resified, $129 when you ask for the Score North Special. You got to ask for it. 952-0-RES. That's 952-0-RES or zeroresminnesota.com. Spell it forward or backwards. It spells the same. Zero Res. Got one more here for sure. Chris Lindvold. Huge fan of the show, first-time feedback writer. After listening to Monday's show about all the heat around people wanting Kevin O'Connell fired, I'd like to provide my take and a possible solution here. Wes Phillips, what would you say you do here, guy? Do it somewhere else and do it sober. Who to replace? He's firing Wes Phillips. Chris is here.
Yeah.
And who to replace Wes Phillips? Here's a hot take. I think Frank Reich would be awesome. He won a Super Bowl on his last OC stint with Philadelphia. His Indy run wasn't super awful, and the Carolina run shouldn't even count. He can provide that mentorship on play calling for KOC and allow KOC to shine and be a head coach. Or he could just take over play calling, I guess. What do you think? Would you fire Wes Phillips for Frank Reich?
Okay, here's something, and I've continued to see it, and it's an interesting discussion about KOC should give up play calling. He's not going to, ladies and gentlemen. It's why he was hired here. Childress gave it up after a year because it was a disaster. Kevin O'Connell has not been a disaster. Now, we can argue about it has not always been great and that there could be more creativity, but that's not necessarily always play calling. That's personnel packages. That's things done in training camp. Frank Wright, you know what? First of all, from the Zim years, I've had enough of the old OC. Here's how you do it, boys, coming in. And Mike also had some really good ones. Shermer was great in 17. Stefanski was pretty damn good. But I don't think O'Connell's going to bring in an OC to call plays. So then the question is, he's going to bring in an OC if the Vikings were to part ways with Wes, who knows his system and can help in game planning. So like Wes Phillips is a sounding board during games up in the press box or the coach's box, but he also is big in the preparation process during the week. So if we're thinking about Wes Phillips being replaced, that's what O'Connell is going to want. He doesn't want or need, as far as the play calling in his mind goes, a mentor. Yep. Now, during games, that's different as far as the management of the actual game goes. Mike Pettin was brought in a year ago to help with that. But when we're talking about how the offense runs, it ain't changing. And he ain't going to give up play calling because that would be akin to him relinquishing a huge part of why he was hired.
I also, and some of this could change maybe in the last 3 weeks, but I don't think the Vikings ownership and front office and Kevin O'Connell, I don't think they're looking at a 7-7 record, leading the league in turnovers for most of the year as kind of they're going to look at that and say, we got to clean that up, but that's not, you don't fire coaches for like fumbles necessarily. And backup quarterbacks, 4 different quarterbacks, half the season. I don't think the organization's looking at that. Wow, they're 7-7, saying we got to make some major changes. We got to swap out an offensive coordinator and fire this guy. I think they're looking at it right now as, okay, they've stayed in the hunt despite some crazy circumstances here. Let's see how the last 3 games play out. If they quit or something and they get smoked 3 times, then it's probably a different conversation. But I don't know that they're getting close to like firing Wes Phillips. If
Wes Phillips gets fired, I think it'll be solely based on the alleged drunken driving.
Yep.
It's not going to be for anything he did wrong. As far as I think he's doing his job, which is to be a sounding board, which is to help out, but he is not in charge and he will not be asked to be in charge.
Yep. So, all right, great feedback Friday here. Some good questions, and we'll get to another batch next week. So I'm going to be taking some time off next week, but you guys are going to do some shows. We also have some historical pie charts that we're going to sprinkle in, some fun stuff that Judd and I have recorded over the past couple weeks, and we will be live with you. So tomorrow our purple picks. Then we're going to be live on Christmas Eve for Vikings Vent Line after that game's over. Hottest Vikings takes on Christmas. And then we're also going to be live again, fast forward to New Year's Eve. We might even be counting down that clock by the time that Sunday Night Football game gets
Buckle
over.
Up right now, though. Buckle up. Fasten your seatbelt. This is about to get fast and furious Viking style. Is what we're about to see.
Amen. Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.